Okay, this is Mac Boland, Illinois, Matmen.com. Don't have Rob here at the moment. He might be able to join in later. So I'll give a shout out to him and again mention our sponsors, GEI Wrestling Apparel. If you want it, go earn it. So, taking a look back at the final event of our Illinois high school wrestling season, we have the dual team state championship. So, first off, let's take a look at what happened in Class 1A. Now, we ended up, despite the regional assignments, which took out both Coal City and Dakota, last year's two finalists, we did end up in the finals with what we kind of expected with Wilmington and Lena Winslow Stockton in a pretty good duel, 40-36. Lena Winslow Stockton defeated Wilmington. Pretty good matchup in the first round with Wilmington and Auburn. And then, as it is with an unseeded state final, you get some of the more non-competitive duels. And, of course, the Wilmington and Stanford Olympia, 34-28. And in the end, Lena Winslow wins the state championship. Unfortunate again, and, I hate being redundant, but the fact that, two of the best teams in the state both were eliminated all the way back in the regionals in Coal City and Dakota, last year's finalists, is unfortunate. Going to Class 2A, pretty much what we expected. Washington was the number one team, and then there was everyone else. And unfortunately, we had a first-round matchup with Washington and Crystal Lake Central. Crystal Lake Central quite possibly being the second best team in Class 2A, but with no seeds, they were eliminated first round. Going into the semifinals, Cahokia and Wakanda, fairly competitive duel. Washington-Dixon, not so much. Dixon went on to finish third. And in the finals, again, not really a competitive duel. Washington, 58-12 over Wakanda. Unfortunately, I think the IHSA success factor really, compared to the other two classes, really damaged 2A. Losing Mount Carmel, we could possibly have had Providence in 2A. Montini was in 2A a few years ago. They've been up in 3A. And Marian Catholic, of course, the Lincoln Way breakup sent Lincoln Way West also up to Class 3A. So Class 2A dual team state, really Washington and then everybody else. And unfortunately, Crystal Lake Central, first round matchup, and they're done. And then on to Class 3A, again, with an unseeded state tournament, you had probably the four best teams: Marmion Academy, Lockport, Oak Park River Forest, and Lombard Montini, all meeting in the first round. Lockport, 33-22 over Marmion Academy. And then Lincoln Way West, 33-28 over Wheeling. And Deerfield, 45-12 over Conant. The big duel, Oak Park River Forest and Montini. And Montini pretty much have been riding what I would consider a wave of momentum. Phenomenal individual state tournament. They put 4 in the finals, 6 placers all together. 3 champs, then go in to a dual meet against Mount Carmel in the team sectionals, beat Mount Carmel. This was kind of the big matchup. And Montini and Coach Izzy did a great job. You know, he moved people around to get the right matchups. They had Woods down at 120, and he kind of sealed the deal. But if you look at the box score, at least in my opinion, the key match took place at 160 pounds, where you had Holloway from OPRF, 5th place finisher at state at 160 pounds, and gets pinned in the first period. By a guy at 152 pounds wrestling up Ortiz, who you know, I mean, that was the big win. That right there was the big win. And on paper, if you looked at it, you would say, okay, well, this is possibly a win for Oak Park, at the least, maybe a decision, but turned into, you know, a 9-point swing with a pin, and already put Oak Park River Forest behind the gun. Now, a lot of splits in the heavier weight, some key matches, which Montini won at heavyweight, won at 195. Lightweight matches, actually, Oak Park kids did well. Close matches at 106 and 113 came down to an ultimate tiebreaker. But then at 120 pounds with Woods there with the major decision, that sealed the deal. And Montini really didn't have anybody to put out against Madrigal anyway at that point. Didn't matter. 29, 26-year final. But again, with an unseeded final, Marmion Academy, Oak Park River Forest don't place. OPRF during a regular season had beaten Marmion Academy, Lincoln Way West, and Deerfield. Lincoln Way West advanced. The semifinals were pretty much uncompetitive. Basically both blowouts. I mean, on the plus side, Lincoln Way West and Deerfield, two really good programs, get to walk away with a 3rd and a 4th place trophy. Both, I think, the first in their school histories, which is kind of nice. And then in the finals, kind of an interesting setup because Lockport, from 160 pounds to 285 pounds, being down 7-zip, ran off 27 straight points, which included 3 pins. And that was kind of the story of the dual meet in that matchup. Now, Lockport really, if you looked at it, the way they went the whole season, they were the team to beat. You know, they really were. Undefeated dual meets. They competed in the Cheesehead. They were a little shorthanded in the Cheesehead with some injuries and some guys out. The Powerade. And through the dual state tournament, they pretty much proved they were the best team in Class 3A, bar none. I would, if I had to do rankings at this point, I would put Montini 2nd, OPRF 3rd, Marmion Academy 4th, Mount Carmel, Providence Catholic right up there as well. But again, until we get an actual seeded, and this goes for the individual side too, seeded sectionals instead of being decided by random drawing, this is going to continue on. So there you have it. You know, your 3 champs. Class 1A, Lena Winslow, Stockton. Class 2A, Washington. And going into next year, Washington's probably going to be the favorite again in 2A unless there's some of the schools drop down. Not a fan of success multiplier. I think it's it's an abomination. Class 3A, probably looking at, you know, when you go into next season, probably looking at the same teams. Maybe to a lesser degree. Lockport's still going to be good next year. No doubt about it. Montini, out of all of those 6 state placers, they aren't losing anybody. They aren't losing anybody. None of those state champs, runners-up, etc., they are all coming back next year. So that's something to consider. And Montini, coming into next season, might actually be the team to beat. Marmion Academy is still going to be tough. Oak Park River Forest, they've got a lot of good young guys. Again, probably weaker in the upper weights. They still won't have a true heavyweight next year unless, somebody gets a whole lot bigger or a freshman coming in. Lighter weights, they're going to be good. They're going to be decent in the lighter weights. Be interesting to see how much some of these guys who improve. A lot of guys got varsity experience. Providence Catholic, again, one senior starter during the season. They're going to be good again next year. Mount Carmel's still going to be good. So a lot of those same teams are going to be in the mix again come next year. Now, the kind of the theme you noticed over this season, every team for the most part had holes to fill. Oak Park River Forest was not the Oak Park River Forest of the last 3 years. They were, came into this season, took some off-season, had some off-season controversy, had some guys out of the lineup most of the year. Lockport, by far the most consistent team and the most balanced team and the team with the fewest holes, and they showed it. Going to go ahead and say tomorrow, same time, going to have a special guest with Lockport head coach Josh Oster on here, and we'll talk about all of this with him and some other things. This will be the last weekly podcast for the season. Now, I will go and do some special podcasts during the months of the summer. Going to try and get a Montini broadcast on here. Going to get a freestyle one. Looking at maybe Lee Kemp and Steve Mocco back on. And we'll see. We'll continue the podcast. Won't be weekly over the summer, but we'll pick some selective guests and we'll go there. Going to try and do the same thing next year. We'll try and do the weekly seasonal broadcast during the high school folk style season and keep that going as well with myself and Rob. And then hopefully, I've been talking with Andre a little bit. We've got a few options and might try to bring back some of the actual in-season webcasts of some of the major events. That's in the works. Hopefully we can make it happen. Don't know for sure yet how it's going to shake out, but that's something we would really like to bring back. Going back a few years, we covered a lot of major events within the state, and it would be nice, I know, to bring that back. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up. Again, it was a great season. Illinois teams, maybe not as big in the national scene this year as in, up in the top 3, 4, or 5. However, I will say, when I look at Montini's lineup going into next year, with some of the individuals they have, I think the Broncos have a very, very good chance of finishing in the top 5 at the Ironman, for instance. It's a good young team, and I don't know the guys coming in, but just based on the returners, they're going to have an awesome team. And again, as I said, Lockport is still going to be good. And these teams are all still going to wrestle a very, very tough schedule traveling around the country. From what I understand now, it looks like Mount Carmel is going to be in the Ironman next year. Providence probably going to be back in the Clash. I talked to the tournament director, Lance Hughes, at the Clash also, trying to get Wheaton North in there. Now, he's stepping down after this year, but he will forward that information, and it's a very good possibility. Maybe we'll see Wheaton North in the Clash next year. Talked to Travis Cherry, and I know he was interested in getting his team into that tournament, and I think given the makeup of that team, that would be a great tournament for him. And those are the kind of tournaments I think teams that want to go out there, get matches, face national competition like the Cheesehead, where your guys are going to get a ton of matches, like the Clash, where there's no elimination. Regardless, you're going to get 6 duels. And the Powerade, which Lockport is in now, The Ironman, obviously, a little bit tougher because you can send a decent team there and have just about everybody go 0-2 or 1-2. The depth there, a little bit tougher. I think Mount Carmel is ready to go back to that tournament. I know Alex Sertzis is doing a great job with that program. It was in good shape when it was handed off to him. Also, I'd like to see next year, how Leiden starts to progress. John Kading took over that program. He's going to be moving that forward. He's obviously a phenomenal coach. I mean, he was great at overtime, did a great job at Mount Carmel. Glenbard North, we now know, Joe Gomez is leaving that program. And Mark Hahn evidently is staying. He's still going to be the head coach there. There's a lot to that. I'm not going to get into that tonight. I'm sure there's two sides to that story. Again, Marmion Academy will be a very good team again next year. Talk about the Ironman. There was a change there too. Bob Pressman, the old tournament director, he's out. Got the boot. I don't know who's going to be running it next year. I will plan. I'm personally planning on going back out there, and the Clash next year. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope everybody enjoyed the weekly podcast. Again, looking forward to bringing these to you next year. Trying to keep them informative and the same kind of format where we'll do a recap, we'll do discussion and preview, and keep the ball rolling. Again, I will do podcasts selectively over the summer with certain guests. Next one to look forward to tomorrow night, 7 p.m. CST. I have Josh Oster on here. Should be a good one. So right now I'm going to cut this and say good night and hope you all enjoyed this season. Have a good evening.